It is 10:20 Eastern Time, April 26, 2020. Hope you're all doing well. Chances are that this will pop up in the middle of a sentence because that's the way this software works sometimes. Hi guys, hi Vicky, hi Star. Hey Doc, good morning. Just before we begin, this video is a live stream. This is a live stream, so if you're listening to this after the fact, understand that there is a live stream going on right now. Well, in the past, if you're listening to it in the future. I want to make sure that everybody understands very clearly that this video will be my commentary and explanation of the General Flynn case as we stand today. My last video, I think there was like just a massive misunderstanding. The comments, oh my gosh. Some of the comments. So I rebroadcast the Dr. Erickson press conference, but the only way that I could do it without getting copyright strike is to do commentary throughout. So I'm not allowed to broadcast that video without doing commentary, especially not on a channel with as many subs as I have, because it'll get flagged for copyright and removed. And I wanted that information to get to as many people as possible. And the only way I could think to do it was to rebroadcast it on my platforms. But I had to add commentary to it. The amount of people who just destroyed me in the comments for talking over that video occasionally. I'm reading, I'm like, oh my gosh, you guys didn't listen to the very beginning. You didn't listen. You didn't even listen to it. You didn't even listen. You didn't listen. Anyway, so just understand this video is going to be of me talking. If you don't want to hear that, it's probably not the video for you. Hey guys, Western North Carolina in the house. Good morning. I'm glad to be with you guys today. Glad to be with you. So it's a Sunday and we're all kind of sitting around having our coffee, whatever. And I was going to write a piece about this, but to be fair, there have been 100,000 pieces written about this already. So I don't really want to write a piece about it. I want to talk to you guys about it instead and explain it. And so I'm here on Pacer and I wanted to give you a little tutorial. A lot of people don't own a Pacer account. But the good news is that for those of you who don't, those of us that do, provide a database for you guys that you can use free of charge. It's called CourtListener. And it's right here. And what it does is it's a plugin that I have added to my browser. And every time I go to a case in Pacer and I look at a document and pay for it, if it's not there already, it will get uploaded to CourtListener, which is called Recap. And what that does is then it populates the docket of the case for free for people who want to see it on this website, CourtListener.com. So if you don't want to create a Pacer account and have exorbitant Pacer fees every quarter, like I do, then you can go to CourtListener and get what is available here on CourtListener. So I'm in the case right now of Michael Flynn on CourtListener. And I'm going to sort it ascending for you so you can see. November 30th, 2017 was the first day on this docket. It goes all the way through today, April 26, 2020, and will continue onward. And it has been one of the most storied cases that I have followed in all the time I've been doing this, because it is absolutely disgusting what they've done to General Michael Flynn. Now, I say that I did a summary video of the case pretty much story-wise, straight through where we were at the time, which I think was a couple of months ago on YouTube. And I will, after this live stream is over, you can come back to it and I will give you the link to that below. And I was honored that Joe Flynn and Barbara Redgate Flynn, and I believe Sidney Powell retweeted that video to their following, because I guess I did a good job, which is fantastic. And, I've had conversations. They're beautiful people. And so here we are. So I don't even know where to start start? This just makes me sick. So just to give you a quick, very high-level overview, General Michael Flynn was accused of or pled guilty to lying to investigators about his conversations with Ambassador Kislyak. However, the FBI thought that he was telling the truth and decided to charge him with lying anyway. And from there forward, we got this meandering story, which needs to be documented somewhere, of what happened to General Michael Flynn, his attorneys, what they did to him. So Sidney Powell, who took over as counsel for Michael Flynn, just an amazing attorney, recently filed that the attorneys in the case had misled the client, General Flynn, and that they had done things wrong. And so we got to a point where Covington, the former counsel, was needing to turn over all their information to the DOJ so that they could determine whether or not Covington had done something wrong. And there was a point in time where Covington said, oops, we found more information that we never gave to you guys, Sidney Powell, when we transferred the case over to you. Whoops, my bad. So sad. That's basically what they said. On top of that, there have been several instances of the government just randomly finding things now, when I say the government, the special counsel was the one who took this plea deal from Michael Flynn. The special counsel was run by a different set of attorneys within the Department of Justice. For a very long time, Brandon Van Grack was the attorney of record on this case. He was the one doing all the arguing. He was the one submitting all the motions. He was the one causing all the problems. Mysteriously or not, a month or so ago, maybe a little more, and I'm not exactly positive on the date, he was no longer responding anymore. There was another prosecutor responding. And we got word in February, could have been earlier, that Barr had assigned an outside prosecutor to scrutinize what had happened to General Flynn. So, they've been looking at this case now with a microscope, and they had originally said that one set of three. So at issue here have been the 302s, which are the notes that when you go to do an interview, the FBI does an interview, they fill out a form, they write their notes about what happened during the interview with the subject. They're not recorded on video, which really needs to change. And then those notes are turned into what's called a 302, and they're supposed to be written very soon after that interview happens for obvious reasons that we shouldn't really even need to discuss. But that didn't happen in the case of General Flynn. As a matter of fact, the government contends, the FBI contends, they lost the original set of 302s. And at one point, so the original judge that had this case was Judge Rudy Contreras, which many of you guys will know from FISA fame or infamy. And he recused himself, and Judge Emmett Sullivan, took over. And the interesting part about that is that Sidney Powell had written a book and wrote a case, License to Lie, that had documented a case that Emmett Sullivan had sort of been involved in, where he demanded and enforced something called a Brady order, where he puts an order in whenever he takes over a case that regardless of the circumstances, any exculpatory or sort of any information that can prove the innocence of the person the government is going after must be provided to that client. Sidney Powell had been arguing over and over and over again and asking for that Brady material, coming up with a list of 52-something things that the government had, she contends, that they did not provide. The judge in the case came back and said, you don't get any of this stuff. And not only that, he excoriated her for ridiculousness. He kind of just slapped her on the wrist and said, like, know your place, and for lack of a better word. Again, very high-level overview here. I'm not getting into detail right now. So throughout this case, like, there was a point in time where a bunch of us were doing a ton of research into this, and Undercover Huber on Twitter, who is John W. Huber, that's his handle, had done some work comparing the 302 notes, the handwritten notes, with the actual 302s, and we came to the conclusion that they had either made a mistake or were purposefully misconstruing who wrote what. And it turned out that was actually true. the government filed in the case saying, oops, we attributed this 302 to this agent and this 302 to this agent, but it should have been the opposite way around. You would think after doing that for 2.5 years, the judge would say, there's something funny going on here. Anyway, long story short, Sidney Powell submitted on behalf of her client, General Flynn, a motion to dismiss the case for egregious government misconduct. Also a motion to withdraw his plea agreement, meaning he was going to let the chips fall where they may. If the judge allowed him to withdraw his plea agreement, he was going to go to trial if the government didn't drop the case. I don't understand to this point, and I think that we may see this coming. I'm not positive, I don't know, but I don't see at this point in time, as we stand where we are today, the DOJ being able to continue with this case. I don't see how they could possibly continue with this case. They should drop this case. They should drop it. And for everybody saying pardon General Flynn, I think that we're putting the cart way before the horse here, because General Flynn should be exonerated, completely exonerated, and the government should be made to stand in front of the court of public opinion and take the egg that gets thrown at their face for this case. It is a travesty of justice. It is absolutely disgusting. And anyone who says that General Flynn lied needs to get the smackdown verbally from you guys, because he explains it. He releases a statement, an affidavit that he signs explaining his side of the story for the very first time a few months ago. There doesn't need to be a pardon right now. There needs to be a complete exoneration of the man and his poor family who have gone through hell over this case, including Michael Flynn Jr. It's just insane. So we've had developments over the past couple weeks, little ones here and there, percolations here and there, but Friday and Thursday, we got some really crazy stuff. This is Covington and Burling were the attorneys that were handling this case for General Flynn, and this is how they got involved. Covington and Burling were retained by General Flynn to make sure, even though they didn't think there was a problem, that there was no problem with the work that Flynn Intel Group, a company that General Flynn started, was doing for companies that were related to the government of Turkey. General Flynn got a letter in the mail saying, there's a chance that there could be some sort of FARA thing going on here. Could you please take a look and make sure you don't have to file FARA? And so General Flynn hired Covington and Burling because they are specialists in this sort of a thing. Well, little did he know at the time that they would turn out to be a huge problem for him. A lot of people question why General Flynn didn't stand up at that one hearing and withdraw his plea right then and do all of this right then. It was sort of the nail in the proverbial coffin, in quotes. It's because his counsel was advising him not to. And if you've ever been in a situation like this, which many of you probably haven't, you understand that you defer to your counsel because you don't know. And, you don't know what's best for you. You're trying to figure out what's best for you. And what your gut's telling you is maybe the opposite of what they're telling you. So you listen to them. You're paying them millions of dollars to defend you. So you listen to them. Long story short, he fired him and brought in Sidney Powell. So, I skipped something. I'm so sorry. So he has Covington and Burling to do the FARA stuff, which they ended up breaking the law. Well, allegedly breaking the law in the FARA stuff too, because they lied in FARA. They misrepresented in FARA. And that's a whole different subsection of this case that I've gone over in detail in the past that I won't do right now. But again, I will link the video below for you so you can understand it in layman's terms, because I'm telling you, this is complicated crap. It's hard to keep straight. And that's why the majority of the public that still thinks for some odd reason that this man has done anything wrong will never get it. Their attention spans are about the length, the size of a gnat. Anyway, sorry. I hope this is beneficial to you guys and I'm not just blathering on. So basically, when the special counsel's office decided that they were going to, told General Flynn they were going to indict him, he pled guilty to avoid all that nonsense. And he kept Covington and Burling on to represent him during the criminal case. Now, months back, again, as I said in the beginning, Sidney Powell said, these attorneys did stuff wrong. And we would like to prove that, for lack of a better word. So now Covington had to go back through all of their stuff and make sure that they provided information to the government that they needed in the case, and information that should have been provided to General Flynn and Sidney Powell during the case. And there was a privilege issue because there's attorney-client privilege, and the government was saying, well, they need to waive attorney-client privilege so that we can get our hands on all this stuff. And Covington was sort of hemming and hawing about whether or not they wanted to do that. And at the time, when I interviewed Mike Flynn Jr. on the podcast when we were at CPAC, I said, if they hem and haw about this, it likely means that they've got something to hide. Well, here we are, okay? Covington and Burling LLP supplemental notice regarding transfer of case file to successor counsel. What this basically says is that they found stuff that they didn't give when they were supposed to give it. In reviewing materials in response to the court's March 6, 2020 order to respond to Mr. Flynn's specific allegations in his supplemental motion to withdraw plea of guilty, we have found emails and 2 pages of handwritten notes that were not previously transferred to successor counsel. Well, look at that. With respect to the emails, this appears to have resulted from errors in the process of collecting and searching electronic materials that were not contained in the working case file. 2 pages of notes appear to have been inadvertently missed during the file transfer process. Whoops. Today, we made a supplemental transfer to his current counsel of the emails and notes identified to date as not having been transferred. We're in the process of working with our technology personnel as expeditiously as possible to determine what other materials were not captured by the prior searches and to collect and transfer them promptly to Mr. Flynn's current counsel. Do you remember when the judge was doing an ethics review of these guys? Now, the next thing that happened was the status report. The government, for years now, has been putting status reports in. What are we doing with this case? Where are we at? For a very long time, it was, well, he's testifying and being completely cooperative in another case until he wasn't. What happened there, quickly for you, was they were going after Flynn's partner, Bijan Kian, in Flynn Intel Group for FARA violations and working with the foreign government. That was a criminal case that General Michael Flynn was supposed to be a witness on behalf of the government for. The government was asking General Flynn to lie on the stand about something. He refused to do it. Then they started going after his family. He refused to lie, said he wouldn't lie. They wanted him to say, this is going to get a little confusing, the government wanted him to say that he knowingly lied on a FARA application. The problem is he didn't knowingly lie on a FARA application. So when he refused to do that, the government's case fell apart. They were able to, as soon as he decided he wasn't going to lie on behalf of the government trashed him in front of this judge, in front of the judge in the other case, submitted documents saying that he went back on his agreement, that he was guilty of the things that they didn't say he was guilty of before. They kind of threw a government hissy fit, a government temper tantrum, stamped their feet, pounded on the desk, and got very angry. So in the Bijan case, the judge, after the guilty verdict came in, the judge actually threw it out and said that there is no way on earth that this man is, the government did not prove their case at all. When this was going on and General Flynn decided he wasn't going to lie, they threatened to go after Mike Flynn Jr. again. Just disgusting behavior. So where was I even going with this? So basically, the government wanted General Flynn to lie for them, and he refused to lie for them. And that's when their tune changed. So all throughout this, they've had to put status updates. I remember now. They've had to put status updates in. Where are we, Judge? How much more time do we need before we can move forward? The judge is basically sitting there waiting to make a decision on this. General Flynn has been kind of in limbo. He's waiting for the judge to make it. They're waiting for the judge to make a decision on whether or not they're going to throw this case out for gross government misconduct, whether or not they're going to accept General Flynn's plea withdrawal and go to trial, or whether or not the DOJ, by a stroke of a miracle, will understand it's time to save freaking face, at least, and withdraw the charges and drop this damn case. That's where we're at right now. But this is the status report. The status report in this case that was filed the other day is asking for more time, 2 more weeks, to go through the information that Covington has transferred over to them. The government is asking for that. Now, look, Timothy Shea is the attorney now on the case. Van Grack is gone. Now, we have a letter. We have a letter that comes in to Sidney Powell from Timothy Shea, the same one who just signed that status update letter. Dear Counsel, beginning in January 2020 at the direction of General William Barr, the United States Attorney for the Eastern District of Missouri has been conducting a review of the Michael T. Flynn investigation. The review by the USA EDMO has involved the analysis of reports related to the investigation, along with communications and notes by Federal Bureau of Investigation personnel associated with the investigation. The enclosed documents were obtained and analyzed by the USA EDMO in March and April of 2020 and are provided to you as a result of this ongoing review. Additional documents may be forthcoming. These materials are covered by the protective order entered by the court on February 21st, 2018. Do you know what these documents are? They're exculpatory in nature. They're things that the FBI and the Department of Justice under the Mueller special counsel said didn't exist or they weren't entitled to. They meaning General Flynn and Sidney Powell. So that stuff was transferred over to Sidney Powell the other day. What was it? The 24th. So that was Friday. And they also said, by the way, there may be more stuff coming in. Okay. So then we got, Then we got Sidney Powell filing a supplement to the motion to dismiss for egregious government misconduct that we spoke about earlier. Okay. Now, real quick, let me talk about something really quickly that I've seen floating around, and there's a bunch of differing opinions on this, what this means. This is, I mean, obviously I'm not a lawyer and I don't pretend to be a lawyer, so this is just my educated opinion. A lot of folks are making the argument that they needed to withhold this information until now because it was being used in other cases. And I'm going to assert that that's absolutely not what happened here, because the government, the DOJ, a prosecutor cannot withhold exculpatory information to one defendant, especially not for years when they've pled guilty, without giving it over to that client's counsel because they're using it in another case. Because if you think about it logically, that would give the other case more rights, or the other defendant or whoever they're prosecuting or the government, more rights and power than the defendant, who is obviously innocent, given that there's exculpatory information. So it's taking one man's liberty or one woman's liberty and handing it over to someone else or to bolster the power of another case. And that just doesn't, it's just not how they do things. You know, you can't withhold something that will exonerate someone who's staring down the barrel of a prison term because it's helping you somewhere else. So I don't think that theory holds any water. I really don't, personally, because it just doesn't make any sense at all. And it's not allowed. I mean, it's just not legal. What I really think happened, and then there were a bunch of reports that came out that Ray and Dana Bonte were withholding this information, and they're the ones to blame. That came out in the Federalist and also in Daily Caller. The Federalist piece source cited Bonte, the DCNY cited Ray, and then the FBI spoke out against both of those source reports. So I'm not going to say anything to that. I don't know what's true and what's not, who physically was withholding this information or who wasn't. But I will say that through the research that I've done, and a lot of very intelligent people disagree with me on this, through the research I've done, Dana Bonte is not a good guy. I've done threads on this. I've pointed things out from the IG report on FISA. I've done a lot of to the contrary reporting. The argument for Bonte is that President Trump appointed him. President Trump kept him after he was already moving around and let go, et cetera, so on and so forth. That's all fine and dandy. A lot of people are asking, well, why does he still keep Ray? And I say the reason why he's keeping Ray is because it's not really, I think that right now, this is my opinion. This is not a declaration of fact. I just want to make sure I make that very clear to everybody listening. This is my opinion as a commentator. I think that Ray right now, in my opinion, again, is a figurehead FBI director. It serves politically, strategically, nobody any purpose or good whatsoever to fire Christopher Wray at this point when William Barr is really the one who's running the FBI, in my opinion, again. It's not politically expedient to fire Wray right now in the middle of what we're going through. And when again, William Barr has a handle on the Justice Department as a whole, has a handle over the FBI and what they're doing. That's, again, just my opinion. Another person who very intelligent people disagree with me on is Rod Rosenstein. I don't think that Rod Rosenstein is a good guy at all. I mean, the amount of evidence to the contrary is so overwhelming that you really have to just completely ignore facts and data to come to that conclusion. People show the photo of Rosenstein sitting with Barr and Sessions and say, look, this is evidence that this is, that Rod Rosenstein is respected and he's a good guy. If anybody has read Lee Smith's brilliant book, I think it's called The Plot Against the President, how Devin Nunes, it's about Devin, I can't remember. Where is it? It's right here in my library somewhere next to me because I've read it several times. I'm going to look it up right now. But Lee Smith's book, at the very end of the book, not to give away the end, he goes into detail about what Devin Nunes thinks about Barr and what Barr did with Rod Rosenstein when he made him stand up there behind him during the press conference talking about the Mueller report. It's very detailed. I recommend, if you haven't read that book, you get on it. I digressed completely from the supplement for the motion, but why I digressed from that was because who was withholding this information and why was it being withheld? And I don't think there's any noble reason for that at all. I really don't. I don't think there was any noble reason that this information was withheld until now. And if they did withhold it till now in favor of another case they were trying to prosecute, I think that's probably the most disgusting thing that this Justice Department could ever do to a poor man who has already suffered for years for absolutely, literally, unequivocally zero reason. Zero reason. That's it. On January 29th, Michael Flynn, Mr. Flynn, submitted his motion to dismiss for egregious government misconduct in the interest of justice. Mr. Flynn now files, and when it says ECF number 162, if you go here, you can go down and find 162. Thank you guys for the super hearts and the super chats. But if you find 162, you'll see what she's referencing when she writes this. Mr. Flynn now files this brief supplement to his motion to dismiss for government misconduct. This afternoon, the government produced to Mr. Flynn stunning Brady evidence, exculpatory evidence, that proves Mr. Flynn's allegations of having been deliberately set up and framed by corrupt agents at the top of the FBI. It also defeats any argument that the interview of Mr. Flynn on January 24th, 2017 was material to any, quote, investigation. In other words, the reason that they went to meet with him in the very first place was BS. BS. They shouldn't have even have been there in the first place. It was entrapment, a setup. And fruit of the poisonous tree, so to speak. In a Judicial Watch FOIA release the other day, I pointed out that there was an email sent from Peter Strzok to Lisa Page on January 4th of 2017, which contained a legal paper on how to use the Logan Act. January 4th, 2017. That date is way prior. Look up that date. It also defeats any argument of the interview of Michael Flynn or Mr. Flynn on January 24th, 2017 was material to any investigation. The government has deliberately suppressed this evidence from the inception of this prosecution, knowing there was no crime by Mr. Flynn. In addition, Mr. Flynn's counsel has found further evidence of misconduct by Mr. Van Grack specifically. Not only did he make baseless threats to indict Michael G. Flynn, Mike Jr., he made a side deal not to prosecute Mike Flynn Jr. as a material term of the plea agreement, but he required that it be kept secret between himself and the Covington attorneys expressly to avoid the requirement of Giglio versus United States. What? Since August of 2016 at the latest, partisan FBI and DOJ leaders conspired to destroy Mr. Flynn. These documents show in their own handwriting and emails that they intended either to create an offense they could prosecute or at least get him fired. Then came the incredible malfeasance of Mr. Van Grack and the special counsel office's prosecution, despite their knowledge that there was no crime by Mr. Flynn. All this new evidence and the government has advised there is more to come, proves that the crimes were committed by the FBI officials and then the prosecutors. The government's misconduct in this case is beyond shocking and reprehensible. It mandates dismissal. Furthermore, this court should order the government immediately to provide the defense with unredacted copies of the documents in Exhibit 3 filed under seal. Those documents were filed under seal solely in an abundance of caution because the government produced them under the protective order, and we request that they be unsealed. In other words, the government gave them stuff under a protective order that requires them to be redacted for the public. They want them to be unsealed so that the public can see them. Consequently, Mr. Flynn is filing Exhibit 3 to this supplement contemporaneously and asks that the court promptly unseal the document, aka make sure that this is visible for the public as well. This case is a shameful blight on the American justice system. Quote, the first duties of the officers of the law are to prevent, not to punish crime. It's not their duty to incite and to create crime for the sole purpose of prosecuting it and punishing it. It is unconscionable, contrary to public policy and to the established law of the land, to punish a man for the commission of an offense of the likes of which he has never been guilty either in thought or deed, and evidently never would have been guilty of if the officer of the law had not inspired, incited, persuaded, and lured him to attempt to commit it. Entrapment. For the reasons above and those previously briefed, this court must dismiss this concocted prosecution of General Flynn in full recognition of the travesty of justice it is. Then we get the exhibits. Exhibit 1 is a highly redacted email from Robert Kellner of Covington to Stephen Anthony. It says here, we have a lawyer's unofficial understanding that they are unlikely to charge Junior in light of the cooperation agreement. We don't know what's here. But that is damning enough. That's the first exhibit. Here's Exhibit 2. Another email from Robert Kellner to Stephen Anthony, who's another attorney at Covington. It's redacted. Stephen Anthony replies, says the only exception is the reference to Michael Jr. The government took pains not to give a promise to Flynn Sr. regarding Michael Jr. so as to limit how much of a, quote, benefit it would have to disclose as part of its Giglio disclosures to any defendant against whom Michael T. Flynn may one day testify. Holy moly. Holy moly. Not allowed. Not allowed, guys. But what did we get? What did we get? For the first time, April 24th, Friday, General Flynn tweeted his declaration where he asks for the plea withdrawal. If you guys haven't seen this yet, you should definitely take a read. He talks about what happened and how he was threatened and how much he loves his country. And he put this on the record and he retweeted it for the first time in years, since 2017, on Friday. Then we got one more thing that just made my heart smile. Hold on. Here we go.
Second service end. We're just leaving the beach. And because you can't park down there, you're now walking home up Purgatory.
I've been doing this walk for 55 years. Since I was 6 years old.
Not me.
Except this time I actually own the surfboard and the wetsuit.
Okay, I'm gonna get in your draft.
Isn't it funny that this is Purgatory Road?
You know, if there's one person that I've been dying to meet in this experience, it's General Flynn. And I can't wait for the day that I meet him. That video just kind of like made me tear up. I know that sounds stupid, but I have studied this case for years. For years, I have studied the ins and the outs and the details and the back and forth and all the T's and the I's. And I have studied this case for years, and I know what they've done to this man. And it makes me sick to my stomach. It really makes me sick. If you guys haven't seen or heard the interview I did with Svetlana Lakova, who is the woman that was also tarred and feathered in a Michael Flynn, General Flynn related case, you should definitely go check it out on any major platform, podcasting platform. It was an hour-long interview, and it was quite extraordinary. Svetlana and I have kept in touch after that interview, and she is a brilliant, beautiful woman who was caught up in this nonsense along with so many other people that just did not deserve any of this. People who were doing the right thing for their country. And that is why we have determined together, folks, that we are going to make it our life's work to expose these mother flammers for the disgusting, traitorous trash that they are. Get energized about it. Don't give up hope. We're going to win. If you guys appreciate the work I do, you can find me on Patreon. I know that it's very, very hard for everybody right now, so I don't expect anything, but I'm working too. So I just throw it in at the end there if you guys appreciate it. Everything that I do is always free for everybody, but if you want to support me monthly, I would be honored to have you over there. It is patreon.com/TracyBeans with a Z. You can find me on PayPal, paypal.me/TracyBeans. You could also find Uncover DC, uncoverdc.com. Make sure you go to Uncover DC. Yesterday, I tweeted out an article, Doctors in Nevada Sue Sisolak over ban on hydroxychloroquine. I interviewed the attorney and the doctor in this lawsuit, which is going on right now. Make sure you check that out. You could also support us here at Uncover DC, which is growing leaps and bounds thanks to you beautiful people out there. It is Sunday. Try and enjoy the day today. Get some fresh air. Get out there and enjoy the sun if you've got it. If not, curl up with a good book or a good video. And thank you guys for sticking by. I hope this video was helpful.